Thank you. I'm Rachael Robbins. I have a cocktail consulting company called Mixologist. I started it about 4.5 years ago. I started really getting into mixology. It was like a transfer from like bartending to mixology about 5.5 years ago. And I really noticed that all the famous or well-known or people that had like the jobs in the good bars were all men, and they weren't hiring women at all. So I started a company because chicks can be badass mixers too, and we can make amazing cocktails. So I called it Chickologist, and I only hired women. And I promised everybody that we were not going to throw away our femininity. We were going to like stay true to who we were, and we were just going to go out there and give the boys a run for their money. So that's how Chickologist started. It's been amazing. I do a lot of consulting for bars and liquor brands, and I write a lot of cocktail menus, and I get to drink a lot of cocktails. So it's really like the best job in the world. It's my dream job, and I'm so happy to be here and share some knowledge with you guys. So I just want to tell you, like before we start, like the history of the Moscow Mule. The Moscow Mule was actually the first recorded vodka cocktail in history, and it's renowned for being the cocktail that made vodka kind of a known alcohol. Because in 1940, a company that was not really an alcohol company, they acquired Smirnoff vodka, and they didn't really know what to do with it, because in 1940 it was all about whiskey and gin and bourbon. Nobody was ordering vodka. So this brilliant businessman flew out to LA to a famous bar in Hollywood Boulevard called the Cock and Bull. And he went to the head bartender there, who was also the owner, because back in those days, usually the owner was the bartender, and they were kind of famous for having their famous hot spots. And this bartender happened to be brewing his own ginger beer. So the guy went with a Smirnoff, and he said, like, what can we do with this vodka? And the guy said, well, I have this ginger beer, and nobody wants to drink it because everybody in America is like super used to ginger ale, and the ginger beer is too strong. So incidentally, this bar owner of the Cock and Bull had this very, as they described her, voluptuous, kind of like amazing, tall Russian girlfriend whose father owned a copper mill in Russia, but they couldn't really figure out what to do with it or how to market it. So somewhere along the lines, like all good ideas are had drinking at the bar, they decided to combine the vodka, the Smirnoff, with the ginger beer and serve it in a copper cup. So that's how the Moscow Mule was born. The Moscow Mule name comes from the fact that the ginger beer had a real kick. So that's kind of like the history of the Moscow Mule in a nutshell. If anybody out there has decided to make their Moscow Mule with whiskey or bourbon or rye or any dark liquor, that's totally awesome too. Because incidentally, Jim Morrison, when he used to go to this famous hotel in New Orleans, would always order his Moscow Mule with whiskey or bourbon. And they started calling that the Morrison Mule. So I'm a huge believer that you should have your cocktail exactly the way you like it, because every day we're fighting with everything in life. We're fighting traffic, we're fighting commuting, we're fighting to make money, we're fighting with our parents, with our spouse, with our children, we're fighting to pay the bills. Everything's a fight and a struggle. You should not have to struggle or fight to get that cocktail down. That should be like the 20 minutes of the day. That's just like your most amazing 20 minutes. So yes, did I work out these recipes to be drunk a certain way? Absolutely. Can you try it your way? 100%. Do I know what that's going to taste like? Not necessarily, but we can give it a shot. I always tell people, look, I don't know how that's going to taste, but if you hate it, we'll throw it out, we'll start over, because I'm learning every time too. So there's no no's in cocktails. So I'm going to start by making like a classic Moscow Mule today. And then we're going to put like a good holiday spin on it. And we're going to use some fire, which is always fun. So I'm not using a copper mug today. The reason they use copper mugs is really because of the reason why this woman had this copper mill in Russia, and they just decided to make them, you know, Russian and whatnot. It really has no purpose. Some people say it keeps the drinks colder longer. Some people say it gives a minerality, like so another layer to the flavor profile when you take a sip out of it. maybe, maybe not, I don't know. But I'm just going to use a clear mug today so we can see what we're doing. And these are kind of festive and holiday-ish anyway. So today I'm going to start with a classic Moscow Mule. And I'm going to use, actually, I have this really amazing Meyer lemon vodka. So you can use any kind of vodka you like. So it's going to be 2 ounces of vodka. We're actually going to fill this right in the cup, and then we're going to roll it. And I'll show you what that means. So 2 ounces of vodka. And then we're going to do half an ounce of a lime. If you don't have lime juice, you can squeeze a half a lime in, or you can just do a big lime wedge, totally up to you. I'm gonna add some ice. Then we're gonna add our ginger beer. I'm using Q ginger beer today. Another great brand is Fever Tree Source. The main thing I would say to look for when you're buying ginger beer is that it has no corn syrup in it, because corn syrup it's a fine product, but it's going to give a little bit of a funky taste, and then you're going to have to counterbalance that with a little bit more citrus. So I'm using Q. I'm going to fill that up. Now I'm going to roll it. So I'm going to take my shaker, and this is what's rolling. It's so simple. Probably the simplest bartending task out there. That's it. Now, I like to use garnishes that make a difference. So instead of just throwing a lime wedge on the outside, which looks pretty, and I'll probably do that as well, I'm actually going to add a little fresh mint to this drink, because it adds another flavor layer, another profile to it. So it's not like you're getting the ginger, you're getting the lime. If you use a flavored vodka, that's awesome too. So I'm going to take the mint. I'm going to take a nice bunch of mint. This is the best part of using fresh herbs in cocktails. You give it a little smack, put a little aggression out on that mint. And then I'm going to put it in here. It helps release the oils, by the way. It's not just about being aggressive. Add a lime wedge. And there we have classic Moscow Mule. It's amazing when you get the mint in your nose, and then you get the ginger on your lips, and the alcohol and the kick from the ginger beer. It's a really, really great drink. It's a classic, but I think it's really important to add all the components to it. It's important to me to balance a cocktail. Like if I got 2 tattoos, I would get like balance and consistency on my arms like this, because I think like those are the 2 most important things when making a cocktail. You want to have like some acid, some sugar, obviously the booze, some flavor, but also you want to have like a olfactory sense experience too. So when I pick it up, I smell the mint. It's amazing. I taste it. So it's like a whole thing. Like I don't like to throw garnishes on a drink just to be a garnish. I think that's lazy, and it doesn't make any sense to me. It's like throwing parsley on a dinner plate. It's like nobody eats the parsley. So that's my thoughts on garnishes. I actually am really obsessed with culinary cocktails, and culinary cocktails come with a bite of something on the cocktail. So the best example of that is a Bloody Mary, which comes with, you know, sometimes olives, sometimes celery, sometimes a whole pizza or roasted chicken in it. So, but I love the fact that you're getting like a bite of something with the cocktail. So that's fun for me also. So, okay, so we're gonna move on to our next cocktail, which is the holiday version of the Moscow Mule. I have invented this thing called mule tails. So it's kind of like a mashup between a cocktail and a mule. So you're starting with your basics always. So it's vodka or whatever your base alcohol is, bourbon, whiskey, gin, even if you like that. Then you're always going to have some kind of ginger in it, ginger beer or ginger. By the way, ginger beer is non-alcoholic, in case anybody was wondering. You can get alcoholic ones, but it's very rare. So it's got the alcohol, the ginger beer, and the lime. And then we're going to add other things to it. So the cocktail that I'm making today is called the Smokin Little Red Corvette. And I make it without the smoke too, so I had to think about what it was called. But it's called the Smokin Little Red Corvette. And we're gonna do something like really fun with the glass. So this is something you can do at home. You don't need any fancy equipment to do it. The last time I did it in my home, I did set off the fire alarm. So if that happens again, just bear with me, it'll go away. But I did open the window this time. Lesson learned. But you can just do this with like a multitude of different things. So if you have a flower pot, or something ceramic, something like a baking dish or anything like a baking sheet, anything like that. Or sometimes a lot of people have these boards that you would use to barbecue fish with, or barbecue something in the plank, or they come in like different types of wood. They come in like cherry wood, apple wood, cedar, and you can actually burn them and they don't ignite on fire, which is great because we want to have cocktails, not burn the house down. So you can use that, or you can simply just light the rosemary on fire, and we'll get to that. So for this cocktail, we're gonna build it in the shaker first, and while it's chilling, we're gonna smoke the glass. Okay, so get your shaker, and same thing. We're gonna do 2 ounces of your liquor. I'm using the vodka again. I'm a vodka girl. And then we're going to do 0.5 ounces of lime. Then we're going to do 0.5 ounces of a rosemary simple syrup. I made this, it's super simple. Literally, it's super simple syrup. You just take the same amount of sugar and water, depending on how much you want to make, a half a cup, an ounce, a gallon, and then you throw fresh rosemary in it. You bring it to a boil, let it sit overnight, and strain the rosemary out the next morning. It's like the easiest thing to do. Shove it in the refrigerator, use it for anything you want for the rest of the season. It'll last. Freezer, 2 years. Okay, so we're gonna do half an ounce of that. And then we're gonna use 1.5 ounces of pomegranate juice. I can already smell it. It smells so good. And we're gonna do 2 ounces of ginger beer. Okay, we're gonna add ice to the shaker. We're just gonna let that chill, literally. So now I've got my new glass. And I've got my rosemary sprig, fresh rosemary. Don't do dry. Dry is going to ignite on fire and it's not going to give you the same kind of effect. When you light fresh rosemary on fire, it gives you kind of that aroma, but it's also like very vegetal and fresh. So it's a totally different thing. So what I'm going to do is I have a torch, but you may use like a lighter. You can light it off of a gas stove. You can do anything that's going to, give it some good spark. So let's, fingers crossed I don't set my fire alarm off again. So we're just going to light this on fire. And then we're going to put the glass right over it. That's going to fill up with smoke. It smells so good. It smells like super holiday-ish and fresh, and no fire alarm. So as this is smoking, we're going to get our cocktail back out again. And we're going to give it a little roll. Now I'm going to show you when I take this up. Should be a little smoke coming out of there. Yeah. Hope you guys can see that. But it does really, it gives it like an amazing aroma. Now I'm going to pour this back in the glass. And you can see this has like an amazing, like really super holiday fun look. Now I'm going to pack it with ice. Ice is the most important ingredient in any cocktail. There's been about 3 cocktail revolutions. The first one was in the 1800s when the first cocktail was recorded, which by the way was an old fashioned. And the second was in the 80s, and that was when all of those horrible like blue lagoons and sex between the sheets and cosmopolitans and all those cocktails became in vogue. And the third revolution of the cocktail was in the early 2000s, started by this guy that was a super famous mixologist. He owned a bar in the city called Milk and Honey. He unfortunately passed away at a super young age, but his favorite quote of mine is that ice is the #1 most important ingredient in any cocktail, and it really is. And you have to know like what kind of ice you're working with. The refrigerator ice is going to give you like different flavors in the cocktail, you know, especially if it's been sitting in your freezer for a while, like soaking up all those smells from the other food in there. Sometimes people use it to make straight from the faucet, and then it has a lot of minerals in it, a lot of different flavors in it. It's going to change the taste of your cocktail. I always like to just grab a bag of ice from the store because it's filtered, it's kind of neutral. But you also have to know like what you're working with. Is the ice wet? Is it going to melt fast? Is it not going to melt fast? Do you want a big cube? Do you want crushed cubes? Do you want? So, I mean, these are things to think about if you really want to get into mixology. But I love a really iced down drink. And also most drinks are designed to kind of work with the ice melting. So they're going to be stronger in the beginning, and then they're going to get kind of like more easy to drink as the ice melts. If they're super easy to drink from the beginning, it's too watery. By the time you get halfway down, it's not going to be enjoyable anymore. So yes, I like to add a lot of ice. So now we have our Smokin' Little Red Corvette. Again, we're going to take some rosemary, give it a slap, get in another lime wheel, and that is your Smokin' Little Red Corvette. Super easy, super delicious. Has that kind of like wintry smoked feeling to it. This is actually an amazing cocktail to batch out. So if you're having a party and you want to make like a big batch of it, so you're not like making cocktails for people all night, this one is a great one to make. It's easy to drink, it's super balanced, and it's got that holiday kind of flair to it. I want to just talk about this for 1 second. This is called a jigger, and I think like this is probably the most important tool for me on the bar. I actually have one that I wear around my neck. Like that's how much I flip and love these things. So you want to always measure out your cocktails because cocktails are like a recipe. Like it's more like baking than cooking. So you really have to measure out your ingredients. And this is your tool to do it. If you don't have a jigger, you don't want to invest in one. I mean, you can get them for like a couple dollars. You can use measuring spoons, so you can use like tablespoons. You just have to like Google the ratios of what equals an ounce. This is an ounce, and this is 2 ounces. This one's called a Japanese jigger. There's other types, but it's super important because you're not going to get that balance without using one. Also, like it's a lot of people think like, oh, I don't like sugar in my cocktail. But if you have citrus in your cocktail, you're going to need like a little bit of sweetener, and that's going to give you a great balance. So you guys use the simple syrup and the lime juice, or you can use lemon juice, whatever citrus. It just gives it like a really nice balance. You think you don't want it, but you do, trust me. Anyway, I want to leave a little time to answer everybody's questions, if anybody has any. And I also want to encourage anybody that wants to follow me on Instagram. I'm always super happy to share my recipes. You can't actually trademark recipes. Well, you can, but it's like really expensive. There's only been like 4 recipes in history that have been trademarked. But I don't have that kind of money. So I figure if you can't beat them, join them. So if I ever post a cocktail and you see it online and you think like, oh my God, that looks amazing. Like I would love to make that, slip into my DMs and ask me for the recipe. And I'm happy to pass it along and coach you through, make it into a gallon recipe, make it into a hot recipe, whatever. All these things only help me become a better mixologist. And I love spreading mixology cheer. So please, like, don't feel shy. Ask me, and I'm happy to help. Or if you have like a bottle of something and you have no idea what to do with it, just write to me and we'll figure something out. So I am going to look at your questions now and see if there's anything I can answer. I think it's time, right? Okay, does ginger beer, anything like regular beer, does it have the same alcohol content? I've never tried it. Sorry. Ginger beer is not like regular beer at all. It doesn't have any alcohol in it. Any of the ones that I mentioned don't have any alcohol in it. Like I said, you can get ginger beer that is alcoholic, but it's like really hard to find. You can also brew your own ginger beer. and you can make it alcoholic, but that's totally up to you. I like it non-alcoholic. And yeah, it's basically what it is. It's like ginger ale that went to the gym and got really like buff. So it's ginger ale that has real ginger in it. So it's got like a kick, hence the Moscow Mule name. And it's actually really good. If you like ginger, you will love ginger beer. It'll change your whole experience. But like I said, try to get one that's like all natural and doesn't have any corn syrup or additives in it. Can you make the smoked cocktail the night before or will you lose the smoke? You can make the smoked cocktail the night before, and then I would just smoke the glasses as you served it. Yeah, you will lose the smoky flavor if you make it the night before, because it's all about smoking the actual glass. So are there any other herbs that might work well instead of the rosemary? Yes, any herbs. Like I did an amazing smoked margarita this summer, and I used just any herbs I could get my hands on from the garden, and I just lit them all on fire and smoked them. So mint and oregano and basil, anything you can light on fire that's an herb or wood, or like even a dried herb. You can do cinnamon stick or cloves or anything, just to make sure you're lighting them on fire on an easy surface. I love Gosling's ginger beer. It has more mild ginger flavor. Do the copper mugs really serve any function or more just for looks? The copper mugs, I think that they are for looks, but they do keep things colder longer. The problem is that any copper mug that you see in a bar or like a home goods is not really copper. It's just copper colored metal. You can get real copper mugs. They're a lot more expensive. I think they do have like a really nice minerality to it, the real copper ones, but they're not what you're getting in a restaurant. Are there some vodkas that are better than others? It's a really good question. My advice on vodkas are drink the one that doesn't make you hungover the next day. So that for you may be corn, that may be wheat. I don't know. I know as an insider, I know that a lot of vodkas that are really high end, they make low end vodkas in the same distillery with the same grains and the same water. I think with vodka, you're pretty safe to even go with the cheaper ones. It depends, like I said, how sensitive you are to getting hungover, because the cheaper ones are going to have more additives in them. What's the brand of ginger beer I used? I used Q ginger beer. They make a light ginger beer, which is what I use today. They're out of Brooklyn, New York, actually. They make a light ginger beer and they make a regular ginger beer. They make all the mixers. They're a really great company. I don't work for them. So let me see. How much of the first ingredient was used? 2 ounces of alcohol. I think that's what you were talking about. So yeah, any cocktail, you probably want to have 2 solid ounces of alcohol in it. So for instance, a margarita would have 1.5 ounces of tequila and then 1/2 ounce of triple sec. So I always try to, like, unless it's a martini, it's going to get basically 2 ounces of alcohol. First ingredient was 2 ounces. Oh, this is what you guys wrote. Oh, you wrote the ingredients, yeah. Let me see. I love a Moscow Mule with tequila. Do you have any fun recipes? I usually just have tequila and ginger beer. Yeah, I would just add some lime to that, definitely, and some mint. And I mean, you could like use some fresh clementine juice, or you could use like any kind of citrus to add it in there. It would just brighten the drink up a little bit more. I think you'll be surprised on how much easier it goes down once it gets a little like acid in there, a little like lemon, lime, orange. Clementines are great this time of year. We got that one. We got the tequila question. Got that. Okay, I think that's it. Yep, that's it. I did it. Well, thank you guys so much for coming today and listening to me talk about Moscow Mules. I hope everybody has an amazing holiday season and it's not too weird. I know that's a lot to ask in the world these days, but I think that with a few Moscow mules, you can forget what things are like these days.